Legends say that during the SNES, the NES, SNES era, Capcom, amongst developing different kind of platformers like Mega Man or Bionic Commando, wanted to do a game, say a platformer centered around having a guy with a jetpack. And way later down the line, they finally tried to have this dream realized. The problem is, they contacted a team that is not really good at making games called Airtight Studios. This was their first game, and they had a terrible budget. Enjoy.
Oh, goody.
Maybe,
Capcom.
maybe they were.
I'm
Maybe they had first game
gonna
glitch.
start with a hot take for a recent thing though. I'm gonna honestly say that the jetpack controls for this game are infinitely more fun than the ones in Anthem. Just saying.
Wow,
Not that saying
dang.
And keep in mind.
Well, okay. Oh, you talk about the flying controls?
Yeah,
Yeah,
flying
the flying
controls.
controls.
And keep in mind, the average you will find this game in a GameStop is new, unsealed, at $7. That's how I found it, for example.
Well, okay. Well, hold on. Have you actually played Anthem?
Well, I seen demos and saw the
Well,
control schemes.
Well, I actually played the demo, and I thought the flying controls in that were perfectly fine. Honestly, I mean,
I think I can see what Tio means, though, as someone who has actually played
Well, keep in mind,
some Anthem.
Anthem took so many years to make, and they looked like so much struggle when these developers with a budget of a ham sandwich managed to came up with, at the worst, the same identical thing.
Actually, come to think of it, Anthem was conceived about 7 years ago.
The only thing that's different is that the attacks, the gun attacks for the jetpacks are not as flashy.
Anthem is a pile of crap. But one thing that I keep hearing people say to the very least fine is the flying controls. And I agree with
Anyway, don't mind with the guy we're piloting right now. He's just there for tutorial purposes, for testing the main gimmick of the game, the jetpack.
Hello, I'm the tutorial character.
We are in a canyon right now, so we're just using the... Yeah, there you go, testing the various controls.
Now, I will give one thing to Anthem, though. Anthem did sort of cover,
And
you
now
know,
aliens.
Oh. Okay, yeah, as Theo mentioned, some of the makers from Bionic Commando helped out with this game.
Yeah, let this be a foreshadowing for the quality of the game.
Oh, goodness.
So what happened there?
The cutscene glitched.
Yeah.
Glitch and you died.
Alright,
No,
let's
no. I need to wait until it resumed. Now, here's the cool thing. The controls for the jetpack, the flying controls, function more like an Ace Combat game in a sense that you can move, reposition yourself on a complete 360 angle degree, even upside down, and the perspective doesn't make you dizzy as a result of it. The camera adjusts almost perfectly, if we had to ask. Now, aiming for a target moving, that's a different kind of story, because the targets are moving way too fast for you to align in decent hits until you are, dead centered on your target. But at least
right?
yeah, infinite ammo, thankfully. For the jetpack, definitely. You have both traditional machine guns and later on missiles when you upgrade it.
Excitement, explosions, air flying galore.
Some of the dogfights can go on for way too long because they give you way too many targets and expects you to eliminate all of them. Now, granted, there are better ways to deal with the enemies fast enough, but for the moment, you're forced to just gun them down as much as you can.
In terms of games where you're dogfighting in the air, Crimson Skies looks a lot more fun. And that game came out in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not to mention, even Ace Combat, I think it's called Assault Horizon, which is considered the black sheep of the franchise, has controls actually similar to this, although a bit much more refined thanks to the developer team.
Now, I will
there you
admit,
go.
while it is... Oh, never mind, we're done.
So yeah, everything's good, right?
Yes.
It
Agent
looks
Cannon
like
Fodder.
generic army guy.
Ahem, allow me. Agent Cannon Fodder, how is your mission proceeding so far?
Did you have to give me that name, sir?
Of course!
Oh,
It's to throw the enemy off to make sure that you absolutely will survive. Anyway,
But at
how
least
is your
he
mission
landed
gone?
safely.
Alright, just about to fire on this son of a bitch.
Alright then, give him your worst, Agent Cannon Fodder.
No, he's dead.
Agent Cannon Fodder? Agent Cannon Fodder! Please tell us that name didn't turn out to be incredibly ironic!
1 week later.
Agent Cannon... Oh, whatever. Oh, well.
Anyway, we resume instead on, I think it's, oh yeah, Virgo, the Nassau airport.
So, believe it or not, this game takes place before World War II. Yeah, specifically
Right
before World
around
War
the end
II.
around the end of the 30s.
Wait,
I
hang on,
think.
hang on. We're in Nassau, so either Sean Connery or Daniel Craig are going to show up.
Sadly, no. Here's our protagonist, William, or Will, Augustus Gray, voiced by Nolan North.
AKA Nathan Drake himself. Is he Shiroi? Is he Shiroi? This is what you're seeing here is discount Nathan Drake, basically.
Ways is because, and it will become apparent, the first third of the game tries desperately to copy Uncharted because it was so successful, and developers wanted to tag in to gain a bit of popularity and show how they were capable to doing things. And the problem is, if the game instead centered around its main original controls, i.e. the jetpack, it would and just discarded the Uncharted ripoff, it would have been even better if you ask me.
Now, here's
Even
the
for
deal.
Even for the point of being, because they were good, very good in what they showed original.
So here's the deal. As I mentioned, this takes place right before World War II, and there's actually a good reason for that. Basically, this Capcom series takes a cue from another Capcom series, Bionic Commando,
Yep.
which also kind of takes place, well, around World War II. Well, okay, it has the infamous thing with Hitler, you all know.
Well, although later games retcon it as Generalissimo killed.
Yeah. And next you'll be telling me that those jelly donuts are not rice balls.
Sorry, Jova,
What are you talking about, Jova? They are.
Poison is not a woman.
Yeah, I know, she's just a futa.
Yeah.
I mean, she clearly has boobs.
Anyway, unfortunately, Will had the bright idea to cut short by finding the Bermuda Triangle. Yes, Shiroi, we're doing this.
And there goes the guy dead already.
Watch out! You're gonna crash!
Ah!
And the game's over.
Well, remember, Teo,
God,
the first Uncharted game also had a plane crash.
Yeah, I know. It's like the sad thing, like I said, is that they're trying very desperate. Even with the female companion, although she's not blonde.
You absolute idiot! Why did you take me through the Bermuda Triangle at a time like this?
Yo,
Yes, Libs.
the only way I can buy these guys survived is if they were Tom Cruise in The Mummy.
To be fair, Dwibs, the plane was a bit better. The plane had better cushioning here.
If there's one thing that I learned in the years is that Nolan North can do some good screaming, so...
Oh, I know how this goes. Okay, the plane is destroyed. I'm lost in the middle of the jungle. Lynn is missing. Mostly likely dead. That's it. Good start,
Nate?
Good start.
Who's Elena?
Nate, hold on. Nate, that was a very good read on your line. Problem is, you're reading the script from
Anyway, let's
Uncharted.
the movement controls. The movement seems to be relatively fine, but the jumping is stupidly floaty.
Oh, goody. We're
this.
also have I mentioned that this game was made in 2000?
To be fair, it's not as goofy as the King's Quest 8 jump.
Okay, have I mentioned that this game was made in 2010? 2010 just happened to be the era of wonky animations in HD games. Oh yeah, that's right. This is supposed to be a game in HD, even though
Like
the
I
first
said,
time I saw it.
I genuinely believe that with the main problems of this game really comes off for the limited budget. If they actually had more pennies in their pocket, they could have come up with something at the very least decent.
That sort of has to do a bit with the
It's
issues.
gonna become more apparent later on anyway. Anyway, to be fair also to your companion, it's called Ava. She's voiced by Polly Walker.
Where have I heard that name before?
I'm checking your IMDb page in the meantime.
Okay, but yeah, this...
Oh, she was in John Carter.
Truly.
Another game that had odd-looking jumping.
Movie, actually.
It looked like a video game.
She's mostly famous for TV series like Pennyworth, Line of Duty, Age Before Beauty, Paranoid,
Who did she play in
Mr.
John
Celtic.
Carter?
Sarkoja.
Oh, that's where I've heard that name from.
No, I don't know.
I think she played the daughter.
Oh, she was also in Caprica and Rome. Anyway, time also to talk about... Oh, hold on, I'll say later.
Hello?
Especially because we're about to say something really stupid.
Okay.
Okay.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting aliens. Ha
And dead.
Or the aliens are hunting you.
That was
Yeah,
good timing, Joe.
an alien robot.
Oh, not just any alien robot. Don't worry, that World War II tie-in's about to come, and it's going to be...
I think it's about to say it. But anyway, yeah, also another thing, the subtitles are way too small and use this blue color for the font. I don't understand.
Well, a guy just died, so let's
Also,
salvage off of
those
him.
guns look way too out of proportions.
I think even the Doomarine would be telling you to calm down.
I wish I was playing Doom instead,
And the
because
jetpack seemed fine, but in these scenes here and in the standard gameplay, I guess, the camera's very jittery.
sorry, I was just having fun with the aiming.
Alright, probably should mention right now, this game is not exactly coded the best.
Well, there are glitches, like I mentioned, but most of the combat works fine for what you want to do. Headshots work properly. Clips don't like magically empty or expand, like in Rambo, for example. So everything is checks. It's more like objects rendering on screen. That's the problem.
Here's the problem. It's the camera, and the camera is essential in a game like this, and
Yeah,
sometimes the controls.
For the shooting section, the gunplay, the camera actually can sometimes do whatever the fuck it wants. Hold on, here we go.
Oh god.
Back in the service, I was briefed on some
Excuse me.
Okay.
Okay, take it from an Italian that I studied history. The fascists barely had the technology to actually survive elemental hazard, hence why thousands of people tragically died in the war against Russia and never got their home and are just buried in the snow bear.
That's right, folks.
You're telling me that Mussolini had enough money and tech to develop robots.
Actually, I'm pretty sure they imply that these are more so Nazis.
Well, that's a problem, Jova. We use the term fascist, which is in World War II is technically defying the Italian branch of the totalitarians.
Well,
Of course, Jova. Don't you know anything about science?
yeah, here's the thing, Tio. Fascism was also what described the Nazi parties. Of course, they just...
The only reason I can imagine they were not mentioning Nazis by using the other different names was in order to avoid censorship in Germany, because it was around the time Germany still had to censor Nazi imagery and other stuff in their
Well,
games.
Tio, remember how I drew a comparison to Bionic Commando? Why do you think they're just referring to them as fascists and not Nazis?
Also, another thing, gameplay-wise, that starting gun that you got from the soldiers, you can drop it immediately, because the standard robot gun that you can get from the enemies, they drop it like candies, and they're easily replenishable, so that's your best bet. And honestly, I think it's more powerful.
So, folks, it's time for a history lesson. Hold on, Dwibs. It's time for a history lesson. So it turns out, right before World War II, Nazi Germany apparently had a secret robot program going about where they developed these androids with practically alien technology that were apparently set out to doom us, but they never used it whatsoever in World War II.
Like, to be fair, this is kind of like the plot of one of those Golden Age adventure comics. You know, kind of like what's the name? The one with the pilot Jova Bueller's something like that.
Yours Day Off?
No, Linkara did a review some time ago. Basically, Britain, UK actually has a comics about this pilot who did all these kinds of things during the war, made Tintin style of plot lines.
Oh, I can't remember the name of that. I mean, okay. Here's what I would do. Why not do it like what Captain America did? Like, Captain America does have all this weird stuff, but it has to take place during an Elseworlds version of World War II. Like, I hate to spoil stuff, but guess what? This stuff is apparently never going to show up in the actual World War II in this world, because our protagonists deal with it all.
It's more stuff that's under the scenes. It's basically you manipulating the events that will lead up to World War II.
And I'm like, Who wants to do that? Like, don't you think people more like want to play during World War II
That's
as opposed
the
to
thing,
just
Joe,
prequel
this was
time?
around the time Call of Duty and Battlefield and Medal of Honor were extremely rampant and saturating the market. So having a game that's actually not full front with World War II was actually refreshing.
Except for the fact that they have it lead up into World War II. Still, like, why not just have it take place in a completely different time era? Why even connect it to World War II if you're afraid of the
There you go.
oversaturation?
The name I was searching for was Beagles. Ring any bell, Waves?
As I say, Joe,
Yes, Dwibs?
this was a Western-made game published by
Yeah.
Capcom.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that so far, for the ones that I've seen, the best one of these is DMC.
Let me check. Well, technically, Waves, how about Remember Me? You worked with us when you commented on that.
Yeah, I remember it was a bit.
Let me see if I get you straight, Webs. You're talking about games that were developed in the West, but published by a Japanese publisher.
Oh, Capcom.
Specifically
Capcom
Capcom.
specifically.
Specifically
Oh, okay.
Capcom.
Oh, okay. Then in that case, I can't think of it.
But Dwibs, from what I've heard, DMC, have you played that game through all the way?
Well, the gameplay-wise, Joe, I agree with Weaves that it's,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's not on par with quality with the previous titles, it's still solid, especially
Oh, yeah.
It's functional at least. You
Oh,
press a
yeah.
button, something
It's
works.
the story that people have major grudges. Also, yeah, let me talk instead of another thing gameplay-wise. The enemy AI is variable. Like, sometimes enemies just charge at you trying to go for melee or grabs. Other times they try to actually be reasonable in use covers. It's a bit all over the place, honestly. Anyway, turret section, because why the fuck not?
Oh, by the way, you remember how I mentioned aliens before? Oh yeah, there's still technically aliens involved, it's just...
No, these robots that you see, technically they are aliens. You will see later on how these actually functions.
Which again just goes to show, I guess the aliens really got latched onto those Hitler speeches when they must have heard them for
Anyway.
their frequencies.
Those golden orbs that you're absorbing and the enemies are dropping are your experience points. Thankfully, this is like a new game plus, so I have everything maxed out already, so you don't need to worry. The problem is that the upgrade system, as far as they go, it's not that developed. It's reserved only for your guns, and it involves minimal things like more firepower or a bigger clip, basically. It's a bare-bone attempt to similar to what Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4, for comparison, is vastly superior in that regard.
Resident Evil 4 kind of revolutionized the art of third-person shooter.
Well, when I mean job in terms of upgrade system.
Oh,
Also, occasionally you can find that package which functions like the backpack in Quantum Break. It refills your entire ammo, but it disappears after on. Anyway, here's another cool thing that the game does: cover shooter vertically. We'll occasionally find these places where you can, look down or up like that and actually shoot in that coordinated action. For now, obviously, you can only look down, but when you get the jackpad, as you can imagine, we'll be able to do the same. So the game has a verticality sense that actually gives it a unique spin to the cover shooter that I actually like, and I wish it was developed a bit more.
I like it too. Here's the problem. That concept goes away quite quickly.
It's not used that much, I will admit that, especially because the game, similar to how Remember Me, doesn't know how to balance between the beat-em-up stuff and the memory programming. This game doesn't know how to balance that between the jetpack stuff and the third-person shooter sections. Like, I honestly wish it was entirely about the jetpack instead.
It's the perfect symbolization of one of Capcom's problems back in these days. They said they wanted to try a lot of new stuff, yet it seemed like a lot of times they weren't really that interested in trying new things.
Even Will, I'm not spoiling anything by saying this, even Will, let me save this, preceding this with a sort of explanation. Capcom, if you notice, if you played Capcom games over the years and over library, you notice that Capcom has a tendency of making the protagonist of their franchises unique and instantly recognizable. Strider Hiryu, Materasu, Beautiful Joe, Jin from goddamn Phoenix Wright,
Mega Man,
Real-
Phoenix Wright.
Mega Man,
Jill
Phoenix
Valentine,
Wright.
Leon S. Kennedy, Chris Redfield.
Yeah, like I said, each of them managed to have something either in design, personality, or gameplay, or a combination of the three that managed to make them stand out big time ever since the NES era. It's not something that most companies managed to do all the time on a consistent way. Capcom was famous for managing to branch out and yet managing to keep this consistency for all the time, and still to this day, most of the time, it's managed to get it. Will is not one of these. Will is definitely not the kind of guy that I will see in wishlist for a Marvel vs. Capcom game.
But Tio, he's a guy for Jetpack. Sign him up for Smash Bros.
For comparison, the game that came out like 2 years later after this, Azura's Wrath, managed to add a protagonist that was infinitely more recognizable, unique, and had charm, personality, attitude, and a gameplay that would have fit perfectly in a fighting game that made, despite having its own game being set back by its own gameplay and development structure, still managed to make Azura himself a fan favorite and an icon that people still want in crossovers with Capcom these days.
And that's despite all the issues Azura's Wrath had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Arguably, even Neilin, despite her game not being that famous, I think Neilin from Remember Me still has the qualities that make her stand out in the Capcom way. I think there is sort of a method to it, but Will sadly doesn't reflect this. He's an Nathan Drake clone with less personality. He has cracks some jokes sometimes, but it's just there. It's not even a quality of. It's not. Well, you have to understand also, Dave, the fact that after Uncharted success, a lot of people wanted to rip it off big time. I think there are a couple of other games that we'll see in the future that will try to do that.
It's the common thing too. When you're a developer that has no creative ideas of your own, just rip off whatever's popular.
Which is weird because this idea came from Capcom of all people.
With this game, like I said, I think it's literally one case of trying to more boost the publicity for the game itself, because if the game itself based entirely on the jetpack stuff, it would have been fine, but they needed something to say, oh, let's attract the casual crowd. It would be like these days, Uncharted, boom, there you go.
You know what's really ironic? It's like, well, for as much as Capcom do stupid stuff, let's not forget, they are the...
Sorry, go ahead, Jova.
To give Capcom credit, they're a company who were infamous for making quote-unquote nothing but monster and zombie games. Yeah, they had like several different zombie series, yet those zombie series still stood out from each other. Like Resident Evil could stand out from Dead Rising, and like it's because they made them unique and varied enough. So you just have to wonder, what the hell happened with this game? Like,
the lack of budget makes me think that Capcom itself didn't really add enough passion with the project, and these were the years that we had the trouble. Keiji Inafune was fucking things up left and right. The fighting game division was in shambles as a result of that.
Which we may be seeing another new reunion for them if Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is anything to go by.
We'll see, but in the meantime, you may be listening right now to the soundtrack, which is now more prevalent. It's a good time to talk about the composer, Bear McCreary. I honestly think most of the budget was blowing to him.
McCreary?
Hold on.
Are you serious?
Back then, he was mostly famous for composing on Battlestar Galactica, but these days you know him more by composing for the new God of War game.
But his music for God of War is amazing.
Honestly, the soundtrack for these is like neck 2. It's not bad, it's just cookie cutter.
Oh look, more robots, but these ones shoot rockets out of their eyes. Okay.
Yeah, those are like the lieutenant type of enemy.
Okay.
Next music is bad. Also, silly tale. If you want to attract the casuals in 2010, what the casuals were playing in 2010 was Wii Music and Wii Sports, yo. Come on.
You know.
I mean, when it comes to shooters, to be fair though, I can see also it's more based on Call of Duty because this game also had a multiplayer tag to it. Of course, nobody cared about it.
Well,
and servers are empty.
Well, technically, till Uncharted Sorry.
Well, was it with like the second or third game that they started with a multiplayer?
Yes. Well, remember the second game came out in 2009, so there was still time to rip that off.
That too.
So I just gotta say.
Although you don't have a skin here where Will is fat. Sorry.
You know, it's really kind of a shame that they stoop to the whole all your enemies are robots things. Like, why not throw in some humans into the mix every now and
You
then?
will have some minor monsters as also other enemies, but most of your repertoire will be robots.
Like, here's my question. Why bother have them being tied into the Nazis, or fascists, as they call them, if you don't even show the Nazis and fascists?
Alright, here we go. I think it's time to establish something. Oh no, yeah, here we go. It's Ava reuniting with Will. I will say this, when it comes to female supporting characters, Eva is actually relatively fine. I don't like her facial expressions, but that's because none of the characters' facial expressions are really good.
Yes, Tio, I do like a British Jill Valentine any day.
To be well, but unlike Jill Valentine, she is not that sexualized. You don't really get that many shot, if I recall correctly. And oh yeah, by the way, this game is divided in like the structure, kind of like of a TV show with small chapters with each episode.
That's right, guys. We were just playing the prologue. Now it's
Some
actually
of
time for
them-
episode 1.
Some of them are even really short, actually.
Explore the village. What village?
America?
Anyway, dialogue.
Yeah. Doesn't it seem like a place you've never heard of?
I'm sorry.
That's stupid.
So far off course.
We must have got turned around in a storm.
More like you ran into something.
Did you, see anything?
Yeah, I saw it. It came right at us.
You mean the giant rock that you flew into?
So fast.
Semantics.
There's nothing you could have done, Will.
Except steer the plane out of the way.
Friend.
I know.
Also, yeah, we lost the
Oh,
co-pilot.
right, he
We
was,
he had barely any line. I think he even lied
I mean,
about it.
Planes Company, hats off! A monument of silence to our fallen friend.
Hell, the pilot in the Brendan Fraser first Mummy movie had more screen time.
It's good to be out
What was
of
his name again, sir?
His name
Anyway.
was...
John Cena, ta-ta-ta-ta. Anyway, someone is in the village apparently, so let's go see if there's someone here. Also, let me talk about another thing. The radar that you can see on the top right corner. It's not useful that much. It indicates your collectibles and the enemies, but it doesn't have any scale. It doesn't have a minimap. It doesn't have any kind of scale of altitude, long or distance. So you're very stranded if you want to rely on that.
You know,
It's kind of a weak radar also in that, you know, you have to just get to a checkpoint and then, oh, you get a new
Well,
checkpoint.
You kind of have to stop to be this conspiracy theorist. Like,
Yeah, someone's here. Maybe up ahead.
Someone who
Well,
is
we're
hiding
Team
very,
Foil.
very, 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 very deep within this village, Jesus
oh,
Christ.
look at that, the natives. Let's see how racist we can be with them.
the welcoming party.
Not exactly welcoming.
They just seem to be standing there. Hello?
They're
Hello?
still.
Your
Oh, no.
presence is unwelcome by the people. And
Well,
the
fuck you
gods.
too.
Don't make us stand and stare at you. Ominously.
I mean, they were clearly in the middle of something.
What are you gonna do? T-pose us to death?
Oh, okay, I
but
guess
look
we're
at that,
leaving.
Oh no, but there is someone that can help us.
This way.
How does nobody hear him?
You're in full public view of the
We're
tribe.
in a plane crash and we need...
Keep close.
Good
this clearly was
Christ,
supposed
the
to be a
texty
cutscene that was
sync.
reworked into this.
Okay.
Anyway, this is Tavi, voiced by Sal Lopez, and he's gonna be a minor supporting character.
Oh, good. Is he the best friend who dies later on?
You'll see. But anyway,
Oh, yes.
he wants for us to meet someone, but who this person is, we'll have to find out in the next part, actually, because I want to keep it as a surprise.
Well, going off of a Bionic Commando guide, since that's what I've been running off of, I'm gonna guess it's someone famous and historical who totally was here during all this time.
I don't know, Jova. We'll see. For now, see you for the next part.
See you later.
Yeah.
So, yeah.